I just want to say thank you, everyone, for being here. It's been my prayer, preparing for this sermon, that everyone in here will have something that they can receive from God. Thanks, Ali. I always pray that when I'm speaking, it's not me that speaks, but it's God that speaks through me. And I really believe and trust that that is something that God's going to be able to do with us today. I just quickly want to give a bit of thanks. Building up to this week, preparing for it. Like I said, I've been praying, I've been trying to get ready for it. My wife, my lovely wife in the corner there, Canel, she's been helping me. This will be the third time that I've preached, I think, in the last year. And although it might be me up here doing the speaking and whatnot, it's 100% a team effort. And I don't even mean I go to her for a bit of encouragement and stuff like that. I mean, we'll pray together. God will speak to us together. She's got a way of organizing things and coming up with ideas that, I don't know, God speaks to her more than me in that area. And I'm the one up here speaking it. So I just wanted to make that clear, actually, because sometimes when you're the one up here, it might seem like it's just a one-man thing, but it's definitely thanks to my wife. And I want to give thanks to the members of this church as well. I've had people calling me, texting me. Wade here called me up the other day just to say, Joel, I've been praying for you. I just want to pray you got confidence up there. I just want to give you some encouragement. And it really touched me. And I just wanted to use this opportunity as well, just to say, not just thanks to Wade, but thanks for everyone in this church. And probably on behalf of everyone else that's ever had a word of encouragement or that random call you might get at that time you needed it. That's the reason we're here. That's one of the benefits of being a part of this amazing church, of being a part of the church in general, is that we get to fellowship like this. So I just wanted to say that first. And now what I want to do is just go into what the topic of the preach is today. But before I start, I want to set the scene. Start in the Bible. So if you have some Bibles, if you can turn to Psalm 51. I think it might get put up here as well, hopefully. And now Psalm 51, it's not one of the longest Psalms in the Bible. And I'm going to read through the whole thing. The version I have, ESV, it starts with a title saying, "Create in me a clean heart, O God." And there's a little intro that says, "To the choir master, a psalm of David, when Nathan the prophet went to him after he had gone to Bathsheba." I'm not going to go into that story, but for those that know, that will help you realize where we are at this point in time when David's writing this. And the psalm goes like this: "Have mercy on me, O God, according to your steadfast love. According to your abundant mercy, blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin. For I know my transgressions and my sin is ever before me. Against you, you only have I sinned and done what is evil in your sight, so that you may be justified in your words and blameless in your judgment. Behold, I was brought forth in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. Behold, you delight in truth in the inward being, and you teach me wisdom in the secret heart. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Let me hear joy and gladness. Let the bones that you have broken rejoice. Hide your face from my sins, and blot out all my iniquities. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Cast me not away from your presence, and take not your Holy Spirit from me." And now this is the verse that I really want people to focus on. Verse 12 says, "Restore to me the joy of your salvation, and uphold me with a willing spirit." So I'll say it again: "Restore to me the joy of your salvation, and uphold me with a willing spirit." I'm going to stop there. That verse is something that I've actually had constantly come up in my mind, maybe even over the last few years. I've been praying about that a lot. It's something that when I pray, that verse comes to mind a lot, particularly the first bit, "Restore to me the joy of your salvation." I've been reminiscing lately. I've been in Ashford. Time has flown. I arrived here in 2012. It's coming up for 7 years now that I've been in Ashford. And I've been reminiscing how things were when I first arrived to how things are now. And my life has changed dramatically from when I came here, a young guy, didn't really know anyone in the town, to now having a life set up here, a married man, a job that's better than I would have had when I first came here. But I've been thinking about how my faith has changed. And in a lot of ways, my faith has developed. It's grown, it's evolved. But I don't know if anyone has the same thing where sometimes you look back and it might be with rose-tinted spectacles, but you know that things were different in the past, maybe when you first got saved. I was thinking, especially when I first came here, I had this fire, this boldness. I may not have known everything. I might have only been a Christian for about a year. But what I did know was I was hungry. When people say that fire, it's almost something I could feel. I would read books all the time, Bible. I wouldn't go a day without reading my Bible. I loved it. I wouldn't just read that. I would read other books. If someone was to come to me in church and say, Joel, I think you should read this book, I'd believe them. I'd read it because I just wanted to grow, to know more. I used to watch sermons all the time. There was a period of my life where even before I'd go to bed, I would just have a sermon on and I would end up just falling asleep and in the morning wake up. But it was just a routine that I was in. I used to, believe it or not, get up and go to the 5 a.m. prayer meetings. Not all the time regularly, but still, if you know me, you know that I hate early mornings. So even going to a couple of them, it was a big deal. But again, I just did it because something in me thought this is the right thing to do. It can't be a bad thing, no matter how tired I am, to go to this 5 a.m. thing. I remember once there was a group of us in the car, and we would just sometimes be going out driving, we'd go to drive-thrus, we'd just evangelize. We'd just go to the drive-thru, order our thing, get to the window, just find a way to start talking about God. One time I gave the guy at Burger King a Bible, just because we ended up talking. We were there for ages. And funnily enough, I drove through there the other day, years later, and I had kind of forgot what had happened, and he remembered me. And he started speaking to me at the window, asking me how I was, and it was only after it clicked. And Canel was asking me, how do you know that guy? And I was like, oh, do you know what? That's a funny story from years ago. I was there at the drive-thru, and I was evangelizing to him. But the point being, I was just hungry. Anything I could do to know God, to know him more, that's what I wanted to do. Nothing else really mattered in the same way. For those of you that know the parable of the man who finds the treasure, it's in Matthew 13, verses 44 to 46, for those that want to read it in their own time. But Jesus talks of a man who finds some treasure, and he's so happy that he's got this treasure that he buries it in a field and he sells everything he's got so that he can buy the field. That's how I felt at those times. I felt, this is unbelievable that I have this amazing gift, this amazing knowledge, and this continuation of learning that's been given to me, and I don't want to lose it. But over time, things started to get different, to slow down. And I'm not talking about falling away from faith or not believing in God, but the in-between bits. That fire started to feel like it was a bit more under control. It wasn't as wild. I would go to a drive-thru and just order food because that's why I've gone there. I don't need to bother this man and start evangelizing because it's a bit awkward. It might be uncomfortable. What if I bump into him in town and then he knows me as the weird Christian guy? You start having these other thoughts that never used to be in your mind, but they come up. And maybe for some of you in here, you've had similar experiences. Maybe you look back and you know it was different at an older stage in life, but the fire started to get a bit quiet. You might be thinking, well, God knows me. God knows what I've done for him in the past, but he also knows the struggles I'm going through right now. So he can kind of let me off a bit. I would have done that before, but right now I've got some other things to worry about. It might be that you just think, oh, this is just a part of getting old. When you're young, you're full of all that energy. That's just young people. But then as we get older, we mature, we get wise. Part of being wise is to be quiet, is to listen before you speak. So therefore, it's not right for me to always be speaking and preaching and doing evangelizing. It might be that you think that's just a part of the journey. That's just what it is being a Christian. You go through stages. You have your early part where you're energetic, you're doing everything, and then it goes down. But then it can sometimes go into other bits. You might be thinking, did I misunderstand my faith? Maybe I was naive. Maybe I thought this is what it's about, but it's actually something a bit calmer than this. It could be that you're thinking, did God change? Maybe I thought I knew God, but I'm feeling different now. It's not the way it used to be. Maybe this whole time what I thought God was wrong. I don't believe that last point is true. I would say God never changed. God is not someone to change like that. What I believe, and I can only speak for myself, is that my habits changed. The habits that I was instilling in my life, they had begun to change. And that's what I want to speak about today, is about habits and routines and the things we do as a Christian. So firstly, before I get into it, I just want to define what is a habit. So I had a little look online. I went on Google, and a habit was defined as this: a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. So the two bits that jump out for me there are, it's something that's regular, it's something that you do over and over again, but what normally makes it a habit is that it's especially hard to give up. The question I would ask, that I've asked to myself, that I'll put out to everyone here is following God's will, and I mean really following God's will, something that's hard for you to give up? Maybe not something that's easy for you to do, but is it something that's hard for you to give up? Or are following other things hard to give up? Are there things that you know you shouldn't be doing or you don't want to be doing, but you find them hard to give up? Is our faith different to what it used to be? Are there areas that are slacking, like I mentioned before? Whether we realize it or not, our lifestyle is influenced by our habits. That's an inevitable fact. You either can accept it or you can't, but your lifestyle is going to be influenced by the habits you have. The only bit you have control over is, are you going to make those habits good habits or bad habits? But outside of that, whatever habits you've got are going to be influencing your life. And the key point here is that habits will determine your heart. We talk a lot about heart in our faith. We talk a lot about how everything flows from the heart. But if you want to get that heart right, your habits are going to determine eventually what your heart does. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23, it says this: "Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life." Other translations say, "Guard your heart with all vigilance." To guard your heart, you must be guarding your habits, first and foremost. Even small changes that you make to your life, to your habits, they're going to make a big difference. Simeon was over my house last night and we were chatting and talking, and I was sharing a story about the year before I got married. I said it, I shouldn't have said it in front of Canel the way I did, but I was saying, yeah, that was one of the best years of my life. I had everything. To set the scene a bit more, for those that don't know Canel, she's French, and she moved here a few months before we got married. So the year before we got married, if I'm being honest, I had everything. I had a woman who loved me, who was going to marry me, so I had the relationship side sorted. But if I'm being honest, she didn't live here, so I had my other side sorted. And I'm not talking about single to mingle, going out with other ladies, not at all, but I was living with another guy. He had a PlayStation 4. Enough said. So I used to live the dream. I'd be up all night. I had a job where I didn't need to start sometimes till 12 p.m. The dream. I'd just be up playing PlayStation. And one little habit I got into is, I forgot, and someone reminded me about Domino's, 2 for Tuesdays. I don't know if anyone knows that, but it's a dangerous deal, a very dangerous deal. And I used to rinse it because what I thought was fortunate for me at the time, I didn't have my wife who cares for me and my health telling me not to do this or telling me to be a bit careful with my budget. So every Tuesday, I would pick up the phone and I would order one large pizza, normally a pepperoni, extra pepperoni. I'll make sure they give me the next one for free. I'd order some sides. Chicken strips was inevitable, but sometimes I might feel like some extra garlic bread and chicken wings as well. Sometimes I'd want the drink because I was thinking, actually, all that food, I know I can finish it, but it might make my throat a bit dry, so let me get the Coke and stuff like that. And I sometimes would buy the ice cream because it's nice to finish on something sweet after. And I'm planning to be up finishing Assassin's Creed, so I want to make sure I've got some energy. But the thing is, I did that time and time again. Every Tuesday, that was my ritual. I did that all the time. And I didn't really think much of it. And as I was sharing this story yesterday, Simeon was like, how did you not get to 20 stone? That's crazy. But you see, the funny thing is, things were happening. Believe me, things were happening. One thing is that I did gym a bit beforehand. I still played a bit of football. So I could maybe carry my size a little bit different. So I would be very clever. I would always make sure I do shoulders at the gym so that it would keep me a bit wide. A little tip for any of the guys here: if you do chest, the bigger your chest is, the more it hides that belly. I'll give that one for free. So I was very tactical with what I was doing. I was definitely getting bigger, definitely getting heavier, but I was hiding it a bit. But more seriously, I started to notice my health was getting worse. I was always feeling bloated. I had no energy. I was having real bad pains in my stomach and everything like that. And it got to the point where I had to go to the doctors quite a lot, and they were putting me through all sorts of tests I never want to have to do as long as I live. And thank God they eventually found it was nothing too serious, but they said, yeah, we think you've got IBS, and this is what you're going to have to do to try and make sure you control it. I didn't really put the two and two together, but before I was doing this Domino's madness, I was a healthy, feeling good guy. All that stuff started to add up. You don't realize it's adding up at the time it is, but it starts playing its part, and then eventually you end up with something crazy happen, and you're confused. I was agreeing with the doctors. I would go to the doctors, and their first thing would be, it can't be X, Y, and Z because you're too young. Before they'd even diagnose me, test me, anything, that was their assumption. You're too young. And I was the same. I thought, I can't be ill. I'm young. I'm in my 20s. This is not me, and I'm healthy. I'm not fat. I don't think anyway. And even the fat I know I've got, I'm covering it up well. This can't be right. But I wasn't accepting that all of the bad things I'd started to do would add up. Another example, if I come home one night, I'm tired, I've had a bad day, maybe I forget to tell Canelle that I love her, or I'm a bit moody. I highly doubt the next day she's packed her bags and she's back to France and I get the divorce papers through the post. I doubt that. I'd be very surprised. What if I do that every single day, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? Is it more likely something like that could happen? Probably. If that happens, I could start thinking, where's this come from? I was a good husband. I can't believe she's done this. Why is she so upset with me? And I'm refusing to accept that from the early days of my marriage, I was putting bad habits in place and just accepting it because I can get away with it. I can be moody with her one time. She's not going to be that mad at me. Or I know I've got a bit of a cheeky smile, so the next day, as long as I do a little joke, she'll forget that she was annoyed with me. I never really have to apologize because I don't really want to feel too weak in front of her. It adds up. It adds up. Bad habits are like weeds that start growing beneath the surface and they choke out anything that's healthy. They start killing off the roots. Even if the surface looks healthy, the roots underneath are dead. And it's the same with our faith. And there can be a lot of times where many of us are putting so many bad habits in place that the roots under the surface are dying or they're dead. But on the surface, you still look good. You're still coming to church every Sunday. You still know the right verse to say. You still know the best time to say amen when someone tells you a story. But underneath the surface, it's gone. It's dead. It's easy to be uprooted. Let us not forget, Judas didn't start as an enemy of Jesus. Judas started as one of the 12 disciples, and we all know what his fate eventually ended up as. And I can guarantee it didn't start with him betraying Jesus on that night. I reckon there was something that started much, much, much further back. Maybe a doubt, maybe something he didn't quite agree with what Jesus said, that he didn't have the confidence to confront him about. Who knows what it was? But I bet there was a story that led up to him betraying Jesus. But that's the bad things. The good point is, The same thing works with good habits. Small changes, they work for good too. I realized after I'd got far too unhealthy that I needed to make a change. I've started trying to work out. I wake up every morning. I try and get out the house between 7 and 7:30. I go to the gym, and I try and make sure I do that every morning before work. I was definitely not one of those people that would do that in the past. I might have been someone that did gym, but early mornings were not my thing. When I was a child, I didn't even used to wake up early on Christmas Day. I used to quickly open my eyes, kick to see if the stocking was there, and as long as I knew it was there, I'd go back to sleep. I've never liked early mornings, ever. But I started thinking, do you know what? I'm so tired in the evenings. It's the only way I can do gym if I'm being realistic. And it started to become a habit. I've been doing it since March. I've pretty much gone every morning, sometimes 6 times a week, so on the weekends even. And I can't not do it. There's sometimes I get delayed in the morning, and I know if I leave, I'm only going to be in the gym for 5 minutes, but I have to do it. It's just become my habit. And there's 3 things that I would say help make something into a good habit if you're struggling to do that. One is that to change habits, you must change your perspective of the situation. Number 2 is that to change habits, you must trust the process of what you're doing. And number 3, to change habits, you must hate the alternative of what you're going to get if you don't change those habits. So let's break it down. Number 1, to change habits, you must change your perspective. I've seen the benefits of waking up and going to gym early, what that means, what that does. I'm not stuck in traffic in the morning. Where I live, to get to the motorway that I need to get to, sometimes I've been stuck for 30 minutes just trying to get through Ashford. So all of a sudden it clicked in my head. I would think, actually, I don't benefit from staying in bed because I have to leave 30 minutes anyway earlier. My gym is just by the motorway. So when I leave from the gym, I cut out the traffic. So I don't actually benefit by not going to gym. Gym helps me leave early enough to miss the traffic, and then I can just quickly hop on the motorway and I'm away. It stops me being late for work, which is something that I've been terrible at. It helps me to feel better about myself. I feel like I've achieved something even before my days started. I've got energy throughout the day. I'm not feeling sluggish. All this happened because I started to change my perspective. My feelings didn't change. I still wake up and feel tired. I don't feel amazing every morning. Rarely I feel like I want to get up that early. But the first thought in my head is, if I go back to sleep, I've got to leave earlier anyway. Literally, what's the point? And I know I'm going to feel worse for not doing it. So let's just go. Number 2, trust the process. I'm a very impatient person. Very, very impatient. And gym is something that is hard in that aspect. I want to see results straight away. If I've decided I want to get in shape, I want to be in shape by the end of the week. And it doesn't work like that. Really doesn't work like that. And what I have to constantly remind myself is trust the process. There's many people that have done this before me, many people that can give me advice. If they all say the same thing, that X, Y, and Z will bring the result I want, it must be true. I have to just keep pursuing it, keep progressing, and eventually it will work. And I've started to see that result in the gym life, but more importantly, you see that in your spiritual life, in your faith. Many people have gone before us and done this life, and a lot of people give the same advice and the same wisdom. So we have to trust the process. Number 3, hate the alternative. I know how much I hate being out of shape, for example. I know how much I hate being stressed on my journey to work. I know how much I hate always making excuses to my boss. I've been very, very creative over the years of the amount of reasons why I'm late, and really it's a white lie at best of why I'm late. I hate it though. I don't enjoy making excuses. It's because I'm trying to cover up the fact that I messed up again. And I hate being worried that, what if this gets worse? What if I get called into the office one day and I lose my job because I keep being late? I hate it. Funnily enough, I began to start hating junk food. the thought of a Domino's at the minute is not something that brings me joy, because it actually makes me feel sick physically when I eat them now. I think I abused it too much. But I began to hate it. And what's funny is the more I would start eating healthy food, the more and more I would hate the food that was wrong for me. I was addicted. Another one of my addictions, let's just confess everything up here, was KFC. If it wasn't Domino's, it was KFC. But now, when I have a long time away from KFC, it's actually horrible. It's salty. It makes my lips hurt. I hate the chips. I actually don't like it as much as I thought. And I would have definitely been a sales rep for KFC if I could have been. But when I spend time away from it, it's horrible. I've had chocolate before, which is another addiction of mine. But when I spend time away from it, it's nasty. It's a sweet, fake. It's horrible. It's actually not nice. When I eat all this stuff and I try and go gym, I've got no energy. I'm feeling sluggish. It serves me no purpose. I literally can physically see how it serves me no purpose, and it takes me further away from where I want to get to. It literally starts making my life harder. But the healthy food, it does the opposite. And what's crazy is the stuff that I would force myself to eat just because I had to, healthy food, I start desiring it. I look forward to eating the things that I know are going to be good for me because of the path that I'm now on. And it serves the purpose far greater than anything else I could do. Exactly like the relationship between sin and righteousness. Exactly the same. Anything that causes you to sin, it seems so hard to give up, and it seems so good for you in the moment, but the more you take yourself away from it, all of a sudden your eyes open. You realize it doesn't taste the way it used to. Actually, it's not as good as it used to be. And I actually desire the things of God. I want to do the things of God. I want to be right before Him. You start realizing that the sin is false. It's I would say a temporary joy, but it gives a lasting negative impact. That's what sin is. It's temporary. It does give you a temporary joy, but the lasting impact it leaves is negative. The taste of that forbidden fruit, it left a lifetime of sinful nature. It's deep. Just that taste of the fruit, it left a lifetime of sinful nature. The thing is with sin, I'm comparing it to junk food, but sin in your life, the consequences can be eternal. It's not just in the here and now, like junk food can be, or some other vice you might have. When you're sinning, the consequences can be eternal. And even when you break the cycle, it's very easy to get lazy and get back into those bad habits. You will have that mindset, oh, that one bad meal can't hurt me. Let me have that cheat meal, or whatever it is. You get the taste back. I can stand up here and give the example of KFC and say, oh, when I taste it, it's salty, it's this, it's that. Trust me, just let me have one wicked zinger meal with extra wings, and I get the taste back very quickly. I can definitely get past the saltiness if I need to. And it's the same with sin. I've had it before where I thought, I don't want to be this person, and thank God, my hands up in church, yes, He set me free. But then I get the taste back because I get a bit lazy, or I think, it's not going to hurt. It's not going to hurt this, that's not going to hurt. And it comes back. You get the taste back. James 1:27. I don't know if we can get it up here as well. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. It's not just something that's good advice. It's something that is in the Bible. It's God's word. We have to keep ourselves from being corrupted by this world. Hebrews 12:1. I don't know if I left that, but Hebrews 12:1 says this: therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely. And here's the main bit: let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. The life we lead is an endurance race. It's not a series of sprints and rests. It's a life of consistency, consistently doing the right thing. And it will continually add better things, better habits to your life that will help you then overcome the next barrier that comes. Like I was saying before, you just have to trust the process. So what are good habits? I want to suggest Romans 12 as a place in the Bible that is great for highlighting what are some good habits that we can have as believers. I'm not going to go through the whole chapter due to time. However, I highly recommend, if this is something that is speaking to you, and if you think, yeah, I know my habits aren't the best, after church this week, go into Romans 12. Read it twice, read it 3 times, because it's full of so much wisdom about how we should be leading our life. And what I want to do is pick out just a few examples of some things that we know are good habits. Romans 12, verse 6 says this: having gifts that differ according to the grace given to us, let us use them, if prophecy, in proportion to our faith. I'm picking it out of a larger section, but it's basically, in a sense, the fact of if God has given us a gift, we need to be using it. Sometimes that could be the bad habit that you've got in. You know deep down God's given you a gift, but you don't want to use it. I've had people say to me that, oh, Joel, you know, I feel that you should be doing this, or I feel that you should be doing that, but I don't want to do it. I might feel nervous, or I might feel that there's other things I want to sort out. And I've noticed each time I turn down what I think I should be doing, it just leaves a gap for a bad habit to replace what I should be doing. It's important. Having a gift from God is not a privilege that you can use when you want to. It's a commandment. God gave it to you for a reason, and he didn't give it to someone else. It's not something that's a privilege that you can just think, oh, that's good, actually. I'm glad you gave me that gift. Let me use it next month or something. If you need to use it now, you need to use it now. Verse 9 says this: let love be genuine. What is evil, hold fast to what is good. If you start hating evil, if you start making a conscious decision that I am going to try and actively hate and avoid everything that's evil, the natural reaction is you'll start loving what's good. It has to be replaced with something. Then the more you love what's good, the more you hate even more evil. And it's a nice cycle to be in. We talk about negative cycles that we can be in, but there's good cycles we can be in as well. The more you start trying to hate evil, the more you'll start loving good in response to it. Verse 12, rejoice in hope, be patient in tribulation, be constant in prayer. So being constant in tribulation, constant in your troubles, constant in your prayer, it's a great habit to be in. There's so many examples that we see in the Bible. Job, Daniel, David, Joseph, the list goes on. All these people that went through tremendous trials, tremendous challenges, but they remained constant and faithful in their troubles and in their trials. And the benefits are there for us all to see, the way God blessed them. Another great habit, verse 15, rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. That one stood out for me on a personal level, and I'll share it because it might be that it resonates with other people here. There's a thing sometimes where when people are rejoicing, sometimes people struggle to rejoice with them as well. It might be that you end up having that feeling of, but I want to be happy for you, but why do you always get everything? And I'm still struggling for years to get this thing I wanted, and actually just can't be happy for you right now. That's not something that you should really be deciding, shouldn't I feel happy? It's something we should be doing as a Christian. If you can get in the habit of being rejoicing for people, it's something I try to actively do since I became a Christian. Something just switches and you end up actually genuinely being happy, even when people receive things that you want. There's a lady that used to go to this church. I remember we were discussing in the early days when I was in Ashford about, I won't even say what it was, but there was something that she really desired and she was seeing it happen with everyone else. She was so happy, and what she said was, I love it when I see this happen because it proves to me that God answers these prayers and I know that he can do the same thing for me. That was her mindset. No jealousy, no envy, because why does that person get it and I don't? Her perspective was different. Oh, wow, it's another person that got that thing I want. So my time's coming. That just proves that God can do it. The second bit of that, weep with those who weep. I'm guilty of it. There's a habit of when people are sad or mourning or through tragedy, you just feel like you've got to tell them something positive. Some people are going through some really hard things and you just your natural reaction is to be like, it's going to be okay. It will get better. Or all things work for good for those that love the Lord. That's true. It's in the Bible. It's true. But is it the right time to be sharing it? The Bible here says, weep with those who weep. I had a mad year the last couple of years where I had friends pass away. And one of them in particular shook me up. I wasn't expecting it. It really rocked me, even to the point of my faith. It rocked what I was believing in my faith. And I remember sharing it with the life group once and saying, do you know what? It's messing me up. I have to be honest with you. I don't know how to deal with it. And Pete Goodwin, he came to me after and he just said, Joel, it's okay to be sad. It's all right. If you want to be angry, it's all right. If you feel confused, it's all right. It's just part of grieving. It set me free. It's like the best advice I could have wanted, because at that time, people were just trying to encourage me, and I don't fault them for it, because I would do the same thing. But the bit that set me free was what Pete said. He didn't try and make me feel better. He just said, it's okay. It's part of it. And the minute I accepted, it's all right to feel messed up about this, I could start moving on to the next stage of dealing with it. The final verse of Romans 12 is verse 21, and it says, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. If you really want to summarize the whole chapter and know how to start overcoming the bad habits and the evil in your life, overcome it with good. That's the only foolproof solution. And it might seem illogical, but like I was saying before, you have to trust the process. You're not going to see instant results maybe, but eventually it's going to add up and you'll start seeing it. So that is a great place. And I do honestly, if this is speaking to anyone in here, I highly, highly recommend just go to Romans 12. If you don't know where to start, just read through that and start trying to think, can I add some of these, even just one of these qualities to my life, and consciously try and add this throughout my week, make it a habit. If you feel that you've got that one down, can I add another one? I guarantee you'll start seeing the results. But again, none of this is really going to take root and be relevant if we don't start thinking why we should have good habits in the first place. So I just, very quickly to finish up, want to give 5 points that I would say are reasons that good habits are important, that we should all be having these good habits in our life. Number one is that God is clear that we are weak, but he is strong. So it's clear throughout the Bible, but God is very clear that we're the weak ones, but he's the strong one. Number two is that good habits increase your sensitivity to God. Increase you being able to feel him, hear him, see him. Number three, good habits are important for other people as well. It's not just about yourself. Number four, good habits help you seek what's right over what is comfortable. And number five, good habits are important because attacks and challenges will come. Not might come, but they will come. So I'm going to very quickly just expand on each one of those points. Number one, God is clear that we are weak, but he is strong. You can see it all through the Bible. I couldn't just pick one example to show to you, but all through the Bible, you see time and time again, humanity's weakness. People that are just weak, that we want to do right, but we can't. In Matthew chapter 19, 16 to 24 is the parable of the rich man who basically goes to Jesus and says, what can I do to get into the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus gives him a whole list of things, like you need to have done this, you need to have done that, you need to have done this. And the man actually, believe it or not, says, yeah, I actually did it all. So he's thinking, job done, I'm actually in the kingdom of heaven now, just by what I've done. But then Jesus says, final thing, you need to sell everything you own, give up your wealth. And he can't, that's his thing, that's the bit he couldn't give up. And it says he left sad. And each one of us, I guarantee if we read it, maybe the money's not the bit that we would struggle with, but I bet the bits that he was doing, we would struggle with some of those other bits. However, verses 25 to 26, after the man leaves sad, his disciples get involved. And it says, when the disciples heard this, they were greatly astonished, saying, who then can be saved? But Jesus looked at them and said, with man, this is impossible. But with God, all things are possible. The two go together. Even his disciples were shocked. even his disciples didn't understand how that was going to work. But Jesus again says, you're right, it's literally impossible. But don't be in such despair, because with God, all things are possible. It's a reminder to us that good habits are important because we're weak, regardless of what we think. In Romans chapter 7, 15 to 18, Paul, who wrote so much of the Bible, the New Testament that we read, that's his part where he's basically saying, I know, here we go, I do not understand what I do for, can you go back to the first bit? I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do. But what I hate, I do. And if I do what I do not want to do, I agree that the law is good. And it is. It is no longer I myself who do it, but it's the sin living in me. For I know that the good itself does not dwell in me, that is, in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. That's Paul. Paul, from the Bible, Paul, who's saying, even me, I know what I want to do, but I can't do it. The goodness, there's too much sin living in me. I can't do it. If he can admit that he's weak, then we all have to accept that without God we are weak. Philippians 4, chapter 4, verse 13 says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. It doesn't stop at I can do all things. Again, the bit you have to remember is through Christ who strengthens me. We can't survive without God. He's not like a ATM cash machine that you just go to each time you're feeling low to top yourself up. We cannot survive without him. We're weak people. And either we can accept that about ourselves and surrender to him, or keep living this lie that I'll be all right and I'll just go to God when times get hard. It's not the way that we're built. It's not how we're built. Number 2, habits increase your sensitivity to God. I've done a lot of different jobs in the past, and for the majority of the time over the last few years, I've done youth work, and I've worked in residential homes. I've worked with people that have come out of prison and they live in these houses. And you get very good at knowing that you have to get the right habits in place or you're going to have madness on your hands. And you start becoming very sensitive to subtle changes where you know things are wrong. We'd be in the house sometimes and everything's nice and you're watching TV with a few of them and you start thinking, you and your colleague, wait, it's a bit quiet, isn't it? I'm not hearing the guys arguing with each other on the pool table. It's a bit suspicious. And then you chat to one of the guys and it's the story kind of adds up. Oh, they're all in their room, they're playing Xbox. But you just know through what you know, something's not quite right here. And the amount of times we'd be able to nip something in the bud just by doing the right things, quickly doing a walk around, making sure we read the reports from the night before, making sure if there was a new resident, I knew what their background was. I had a time where I went up and did a room search. Everything was all good, but we just had that feeling. And in the drawer of one of the guys, he had a knife. The blade was about that long. And thank God that we found this blade, because if something kicked off, there was 2 of us in a house of about 20, 25 residents. If something kicks off, you're done. And it's not going to be fists and feet. It's potentially a blade that's involved in stuff like that. But thank God, because you get your habits in place, you start becoming sensitive. You start thinking, actually, I know that something's not quite right here. And it's the same with our faith. The more you get into good habits, the more you start hearing from God a bit more. You start knowing how to evangelize. You know the right way to pray for someone. You start knowing his voice, and more importantly, you start knowing what isn't his voice. That's what good habits will start doing for you. Number 3, good habits are important for other people. Like I said, it's not even that this life is just about ourselves. It's about other people as well. How many times have we even said or heard people say to us, just do what I say, don't do what I do? I remember as a kid hearing that a lot. Just do what I say. And I'd be like, yeah, but Mom, you do it. Shut up. Do what I say. Don't worry about what you see me doing. Just do what I say. But we don't respond well to that as people. We respond to actions. If there's good things, there was something that we shared the other day actually in the life group, and I didn't know Canel was going to share it, and it touched me. She said, yeah, do you know what? When I'm with Joel, I feel safe. And that meant a lot to me. And I know that's not the result of me saying a few big words. I might know the right things to say to her, but I know that's not what made her say that. It's because I'm constantly just trying to do the small things. And I'm not sharing this story to make out like I'm perfect. Canel will tell you I make a lot of mistakes, but I try my best to do the small things right, to make sure that I do this, or cool, when I'm in the shop, I'm not going to be inappropriate, or if I see someone flirting with me, I'm not going to flirt back, or all these little things. You don't do it, and it helps my wife to feel, I feel safe. I know that with Joel, it's all right. The habits build up. It's important for other people. Your life is not just about the piece of the puzzle that you've been given. It's about the puzzle that you're about to be a part of. Once you've got your piece and you know what your part to play is, your focus should be, cool, where do I fit into this picture now? That's what I need to be doing. Number 4, good habits help you seek what is right over what is comfortable. It will help you to stop making excuses. It will prove what you're actually capable of and start taking away your limits. I've had things that I've hated my whole life. Like I said, early mornings. I try and get up now for the gym because I don't want that to control me anymore. I don't like the negative things that it has over me. What I do at the gym is I try and go swimming. I hate swimming. I've never been good at it. It was the one thing. I was all right at sports at school, but swimming, I was bottom of the class. I couldn't do it. And so I didn't like it. I've never liked swimming because it reminds me that I'm not good at something. But I try and do it now because I don't like the fact that that has that hold over me, even mentally, that it makes me feel like there's a limit. A bigger one, I will try and do things, speaking in public. When I come here and I was doing my music, performing, I was a very shy person when I was young. I didn't want to be standing out from people. I grew up in a place where I didn't look like anyone else around me. Even my name was different. The food I took to school was different from what everyone had. I hated it because I always stood out and I didn't want to embrace that I was different. So it just made me quite shy and always wanting to hide around and never really stand out because I didn't want people to notice I was different. But I've tried to force myself to do things that overcome that. And the impact it's had on my life has been great. It's the same thing with our faith. Daniel, in chapter 6, there's a story about how Daniel is being elevated in the kingdom, and there's people that are starting to get jealous and trying to bring him down. And it actually says that they couldn't bring him down because he was faultless. He was blameless. So what they came up with was, let's make a law that if you pray to anyone apart from the king in 30 days, you'll be thrown to the lions. And it says that in verse 10, it basically says that Daniel, despite knowing this, went and prayed to his God. And then it says, 3 times a day, it said he prayed to God, as he did so, as he always did. It's a habit that Daniel had, and he wasn't willing to break it even when the law changed. Are we potentially heading for times like that in this country, in this world, where we're going to maybe start being challenged on some of the things that we believe or some of the things that we do? Could we honestly, in our heart of hearts, say, yeah, I would still be like Daniel, even if it gets to a point where I'll be thrown in jail? That's what I do with my God. That's what I know to be right. Could we do that? If you want to be in a position where you could be confident that, yeah, I would still do the right thing, good habits are going to be the thing that will help you to get to that point. And number 5, finally, is that attacks will come. It's a fact of life. It's something that Jesus himself didn't say, yeah, when you follow me, everything in your life will get easy. He kind of alluded to the opposite, that actually things will be hard. However, it's through me that you will have strength. In 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 8 to 9. Here we go. Chapter 5, verses 8 to 9 says, "Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. Resist him, firm in your faith, knowing that the same kinds of suffering are being experienced by your brotherhood throughout the world." 2 quick bits there. Number 1, the devil is prowling around like a lion. If anyone's seen those nature documentaries with lions and seen them prowling, you've seen how menacing it is. Even when the gazelles are in the field, they're oblivious to what's going on. You can see in the background, oh, the lions are there though. They're going to get their time. They're going to try and strike when they can. They're prowling. Verse 9, it says that The same kinds of suffering that are being you are experiencing, your brothers around the world are experiencing the same things. You can weirdly take comfort in that sometimes, knowing that even through my trials, it is a part of life. I'm not the only one that's going through this. And to go back to the verse 8, devour, it proves that the enemy is trying to get us anyway. Even with good habits, he'll try and get us. So why give him excuses and an easy ride by having bad habits? He's going to go for us anyway. So I'd rather be in a position where I know I'm strong when he tries his attack, so he's not going to defeat me. But the good news is that good habits will also stop these attacks and these storms from being scary. We know that life will be stormy. We know that times are going to be hard and that it's not always going to go the way that we think it will go. But with our faith and with good habits and with Jesus, we know that the things will all of a sudden stop being scary. I've got one last verse that I just want to share. And it's in the book of Matthew, and it's chapter 7, verses 24 to 27. And it says this: "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, and the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash." It's scary and encouraging at the same time, and I think it sums up the point of what I'm trying to share today, in that your good habits and your bad habits will determine what foundation you're building your life on. And Jesus himself said clearly that whatever you choose to build on is going to affect how you stand up when the storm comes. The storm will come, and if you've decided to build on the sand, you're in trouble. But hopefully you've still got some time now to make some changes to start building on the rock being Jesus Christ. If you can build your life on him, that storm will still come, but don't worry about it. You know you've got nothing to be scared of, because Jesus himself has said, as long as you build your life on me, everything will be okay. There's nothing to fear. Some of you in here might be perhaps how I was feeling, that maybe you've been slacking or some areas of your life have slipped up. There might be some of you in here that are feeling that, you know what, I don't think I've ever got this right. I really don't think I've ever got any good habits. Or maybe for some of you, like I was when I first started coming to church, it's all new. And this is like another language, but something inside of you just knows that it's true. Whatever point you're at that journey, the answer will always come back to Jesus. And I just want to close in prayer. I think we're going into a little bit of ministry time now. I'm not sure what that involves, but if something spoke to you and you'd like me to pray for you, I'd be more than happy to do that at the end of church. We've got a great prayer team in this church that will pray for you. Or even if you've got some other brothers and sisters in the church who you know, do you know what, I would like to bring that to you in prayer. I would highly encourage you to do it. It's not something that we should go through alone. And the better habits we can get into our life, the stronger we're going to be. So, Father God, I just thank you for your amazing word, the Bible. I thank you for your son, Jesus. I thank you for the wisdom you give us to navigate through this crazy life. I pray, Lord, whatever is true and right for each one of us individually, you speak it to us, Lord. Fill us with your spirit. Penetrate through to, Lord, our spirit, and reveal to us what it is you must do, or what we must do. If there's good habits we need to pick up or bad habits we need to get rid of, show it to us clearly and give us the strength to be able to pursue this. I give thanks that we know that through you we have strength to do this, Jesus, and it's not hopeless. And I pray that you give us all wisdom to support each other, to grow and build our lives on the solid foundation that is you, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. Thank you.